Hello, I'm Dr. Ian Ellingham, the co-author with Dr. William Fawcett of the book Whole Life Sustainability by RIBA Publishing and available through the Royal Institute of British Architects bookshop or from online booksellers. This book resulted from research done by our organization, Cambridge Architectural Research, and funded by a number of government programs. And it explores questions of sustainability in the built environment. And, of course, almost everyone deals in some way with the built environment because buildings and cities provide us with places to live, shop, work, and enjoy ourselves. But there's a large group of people who create and manage them and so have a special interest in sustainability. It's generally accepted that sustainability is a good thing. You want it, I want it, we all want it. But it's not always clear what it is, how to get it, how to measure it, or even in hindsight, whether it's been achieved. Of course, there's nothing new about sustainability. People have always taken steps in an attempt to improve the future, but our record of achievement is not always that wonderful. In fact, for many cultures and many periods of time, improvements in human well-being have come slowly, stalled, or even moved backwards. Hopefully, with our 21st century capabilities, we can improve on that record. A fundamental issue is what actions to take to avoid either overinvestment or underinvestment. It's a matter of getting some balance. Therefore, in our book, and in this video, we don't attempt to sell any particular model of sustainability. Our objective is to help people become better decision makers. So the decisions that they make, that you make, will better achieve your objectives. To do that, we'll want to talk about some concepts and methods. Without good methods, your actions may degenerate to essentially throwing things at a wall, hoping that something might stick. Now, let us look at an example, something based on suggestions from the Nobel Prize-winning economist Paul Samuelson. Believe it or not, it's simpler than many, perhaps most, building decisions. The question is, how level should you make a railway? The flatter the better. It reduces fuel use and wear on the equipment. At one extreme, to achieve maximum efficiency, one might contemplate drilling a very expensive level tunnel under a mountain range, perhaps from Germany to Italy or under the Canadian Rockies. But the builders might concern themselves with such things as the existing terrain, the expected traffic volume immediately and into the future, the availability and cost of resources for construction and maintenance now and into the future. How long the line is likely to last? If it goes to a factory of mine, it might have a finite and perhaps even predictable life expectancy. The possibility of the development of alternative means of transportation that make the railway of little or no use. And then there are political considerations about location, as railway lines, like buildings, can disrupt people, property, and animals. This is obviously a complex balancing act, facing many uncertainties, rather like what creators of the Built Environment Act encountered. For railways, it was historically undertaken by a collection of financiers, engineers, managers, and politicians who attempted to weigh off the various factors through complex and sometimes lengthy or even arbitrary negotiating processes. Rather, this happens with building development teams. If you don't build a flat enough line, you'll likely underinvest by spending too much on fuel and maintenance. And you may want to rebuild the line in the future, which actually is a possible course of action you might plan for at the beginning. Alternatively, if you spend too much money building a really flat, high-quality rail line, and the traffic fizzles out in a few years, well, that's obviously was overinvestment. Neither is a good result, and both waste resources. Two things are key to any attempt to achieve sustainability. First, it's all about time. We make decisions now in order to generate some benefit to be received by someone sometime in the future. With buildings, this matter is more important, more apparent, and more complex than most other human-created artifacts. After all, packaging, clothing, and cars don't really last that long. But buildings like railway routes can last for centuries. The other key factor is uncertainty. The future simply cannot be known, at least for those of us without access to a time machine. We can project, we can create models, we can guess or consult experts, but the reality is always that we cannot know the future with certainty. We can only have expectations about the results of our actions, and there's nothing that guarantees those expectations will be met, because we cannot know the direction the path into the future will take. We all look into this unknowable future. Here's a representation of some possible paths for a shoring decision, something you think would actually be easy. But as you look more carefully, it becomes progressively more complex. What new products might become available? Will the building remain in the same use? And what are future managers likely to do? Our railway planners might be able to accurately predict the traffic volume for next year or the year after, but the further one looks into the future, the more hazy things become. How much traffic will there be in 20 or 30 years? Will there be any at all? So when we attempt to achieve sustainability of buildings, we're like those railway builders. There's often more we don't know than we do. But design and management decisions still have to be made. People involved in creating, managing, and even using buildings may be making hundreds of minor decisions a day. There are many implications as their pencil moves across the paper or their cursor across the screen, or they make management decisions. Unlike many other human-created products, buildings are almost always unique. Here are some of the ways. Even chain fast food restaurants sit on different pieces of land, often have different physical orientations, and are in different regulatory contexts. This individuality limits the time to be given to decisions. Many other products are made in the tens of thousands, so unlike the case of buildings, the cost of decision-making, data collection, analysis, and so on can be spread over many units of production. But importantly, data about buildings and building components is often exceedingly difficult or even impossible to get. Such a simple question as, how long will a product or system last, will tend to list best guesses, or anecdotes about some surprisingly premature failure or an amazingly long life. This means that a decision maker will often do what was done before, or rely on some sort of informed gut feel. Now, people can be spectacularly great decision makers, as we are often forced to deal with very complex problems, with limited time, multiple uncertainties, and poor data, things that computers simply cannot do yet. Our interest in this area came from observing two very experienced individuals, one an architect, the other corporate property manager, making what were on the face of it very curious decisions. We cannot explain why, but felt they were correct. We spent a few weeks exploring concepts, collecting data, and a couple more weeks in mathematical modeling. It turned out that they were making very high-level decisions that were perhaps even optimal. They'd been working for the same company, repeatedly refurbishing department stores, often seeing the results of what they'd done before. Their informed intuition was operating at a very high level. This little story tells us that people can be astoundingly capable decision makers. Our two friends were doing things by means of some mysterious intellectual process, replicating a method that has been possible mathematically only over the past couple of decades. But this comes with a whole set of cautions and questions. Both of these individuals had been working in a very specific context. Department stores have short refurbishing cycles, so outcomes could be observed. They were both near the end of their careers and are now retired. One haunting thought is that a designer or manager may spend most of their career making suboptimal decisions, only to spend the last few making better decisions. So, how does one accelerate the process of becoming an informed expert decision maker? They were operating in accordance with each other. In the project planning sessions, there are often a range of opinions about what's the best course of action. How do you tell which, among conflicting opinions, all held by people presenting themselves as experts, is the most appropriate? Of course, what the right decision might be is not always clear, even in hindsight. Did a favorable outcome occur just as a result of an unlikely series of events? There are multiple paths to the future, but only one can be taken. And that's something that's very difficult for most people to get their minds around. On this binomial tree we're looking at, one variable is modeled. There are lots of possible paths into the future, but in reality, only one will be followed. And in advance, we don't know which one. It could be a highly unlikely one. Moreover, we know how flawed our decision-making can be. The numerous experiments of Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, as well as others, point to decision traps into which even the most intelligent and capable can fall. The list of potential decision traps is immense. Too long to go in here. You can find quite a few of them described in Whole Life Sustainability. But every participant in decision-making should have some familiarity with at least some of them, if only to create some degree of humility, some resistance to the worst decision traps, and a wariness of advertising. The history of corporations and government are littered with disastrous decisions, and the management disciplines tear them apart and attempt to ensure they're not repeated, or at least to learn something from them. The reality is that alternatives are often difficult to identify and assess, and quantification is often a very slippery matter. Sometimes alternatives are identifiable only in hindsight. If only I had done that. This unfortunate reality is that decisions must be made. Data is poor, uncertainty is rampant, and not every alternative can be recognized and assessed. What we've done in whole life sustainability is to pull together methods that can help you deal with this collection of factors in order to make your sustainability motivated quest easier. Numbers can help immensely in understanding situations and assessing alternatives. It's just that usually there's no simple numerical process or end product. You don't get a number at the end, a single number. In our work at Cambridge Architectural Research, we usually explore numerical output. We take sensitivity analysis. We express things in terms of the uncertainties, confidence levels, and often identify what uncertainty is most important in determining final outcomes. Perhaps you will never fill a spreadsheet with numbers, but merely understanding concepts will still be of value. Why? It goes back to those two decision makers who are relying on informed expert opinion. We should also try to develop that. And that means experience and study. Your brain stores lessons away in a mysterious filing system, and perhaps drawing on them years later to solve a problem, probably at 3 o'clock in the morning. What we've done in our book, Whole Life Sustainability, is to take a considered look at how the designer and manager can approach decisions. On one level, we offer and explain some basic mathematical concepts and methods. But one of our main objectives is to help develop people's abilities to make better decisions without involved calculations. The book takes the reader through ways of thinking about such things as time preference, how to approach those uncertainties, developing and conceptualizing alternatives, making trade-offs between different matters, understanding the presence of real options, and even considering the role of future, yet unknown, managerial decisions. The book offers a lot of thoughts and a lot of guidance. On an ongoing basis, we in the building world need to ever increase our capabilities of dealing with the future and with uncertainties. This book is a step towards this objective.